So this panel is branding Q&A with a game industry vet. I've been in the game industry 16 years now. I have worked on a bunch of games. Here's a few of them. I've done marketing for all these games, so I'm a senior marketing artist. This is what my title is currently, but every studio calls it something different. So what I do is everything from like making all the game trailers, like 100%. I'll film them, edit them, do motion graphics, like just 100%. There's no, usually the teams are 1 to 2 people on every game studio. So you just have to take all roles. So I do everything like that. I even make like banner ads if you have to do advertising. Depending on how big the studio is, like QC Games, I had to come up with their whole marketing plan of colors and everything else like that. Like there's a lot to it. There's like logos, and you kind of just have to take all hats when you do something like that. I don't have a ton of slides on here. It's gonna be a lot of Q&A if you have questions. Yeah, so I've been doing it a very long time. There's a lot of, let's see, branding. This is what branding means, by the way. Product or company by means of advertising and distinctive design, which basically means people remember you by what you look like. Not yourself, but what your brand is. That involves logos, social media, short videos if you're advertising, color. What I put on here was 4 logos. I think a lot of people would recognize those logos just by looking at it without seeing the actual name. EA obviously puts EA for but their name is Electronic Arts, and the Apple, Google, and the bottom one is Half-Life. So they have very memorable logos that people just see all the time because they're branded, and they're simple. So what I wanted to talk about was like making sure that people remember your brand is very important, but keeping it simple is even probably more important, to be honest. I've seen people do like their logos are like a very detailed like tiger, where they drew out like every detail of this giant tiger and it had like a background to it, and it was like in a forest, and yeah, nobody's gonna remember that. It's too much. It's like simple is best with logos and branding. The point I put social media and short videos and color on here is color and logos are kind of your static brand. Social media, short videos are kind of your advertising. If you're doing, how many people are streamers in here or going to be streaming? Okay, we got streaming. What about products? Anybody do products? Like physical? Okay. Getting into it. Anything else you guys try to brand? YouTube? Okay. Orchestra, interesting. Okay. That's a new one for me. So all of this kind of will work together. Obviously for YouTube, you're gonna need to do short videos right now. Like the current generation, we like to say, and after talking to TikTok specifically, the current generation has about 3 to 5 seconds before you lose them. And that's just how it works, right? Everybody's got like ADHD brain nowadays, me included. So you have a very short time to grab anyone. Even TikTok's like, you gotta make 3 videos a day and you have to catch them in the first 3 seconds. That's their official thing, which is hard. It's very hard. Like nowadays, specifically for YouTube, what they recommend is don't do intros. And by intros, I mean your logo animated in doing like a fancy thing. This used to be like what everyone did on YouTube. They'd always have this cool logo and people are like, cool logo. And you're like, oh, remember, no, don't do that. You have to actually make an intro, which is a teaser for the rest of the video. And you don't have to worry about it being a spoiler because all you have to do is catch them and they don't care if it happens again later in the video. You can do a logo, but you don't do it in the first 3 seconds. So it also helps your algorithm on YouTube specifically because the YouTube algorithm uses about the first 8 seconds, which also means do not right now, and this is a new thing for YouTube, do not cuss in the first 8 seconds of your video. They will actually demonetize it right away. This just happened like, I think it was a week ago they added this. It was like a shadow added, so, but a bunch of bigger YouTubers were talking about it because they would drop the F-bomb. And if you do it in the first 8 minutes or 8 seconds, you actually get your you just lose all monetization right away. It's new. They're being really strict about swearing. I actually highly recommend if you do YouTube, you don't swear at all anymore because you'll get on the algorithm much better. You can kind of bleep it out, which is what a lot of people do, and honestly, it's kind of funnier that way if you just bleep it out because they see you doing a rant and all they hear is beep, 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 beep. It's pretty funny, but YouTube hates it right now. They're trying to get a more family-friendly thing. As far as Twitch, it's not as big a deal anymore. Twitch doesn't really have an algorithm, so they're not going to actually bleep you for swearing. There is a TOS, so you got to be a little careful on that, but the TOS does not involve swearing. Usually it's not a great idea to just drop a ton of F-bombs nowadays because even though Twitch is 18 plus, it's full of kids. So do as you will. A rant here and there, a rage quit is funny. People like that. Just cussing every other word, probably not a good idea, especially if you're trying to brand yourself. As far as social media, sorry, I'm still half awake, so I'm just bear with me here. Social media, as far as branding, there is a rule with branding in especially in games, which is consistency. You have to make sure your logo is used everywhere you go. You also have to make sure your color scheme is the same. It doesn't matter if you're doing like game trailers where your game might not be the same color, but if you have an end slate, if you have opening video for some reason with your logo, you don't want to ever have the colors like be so drastic from your logo. So usually what people do is they'll pick 6. I had a slate for this, but it's not on my laptop. You pick 6 colors. 6 colors that match your color tone of your logo. If you're curious about that stuff, you can actually just Google like color tone, and it'll actually there's actually websites that will give you ideas, and they'll have like strips of here's 6 colors, here's 6 colors, here's 6 colors that go together and are easy on the eye. I tell people usually steer away unless you're like a rage quit kind of channel or the things you do are like, over the top. I would stay away from very harsh colors like red. You'll see them in like Google. Google uses them because red is a power color. If they want to do power, they usually use red. Like Netflix uses red, and everybody knows Netflix is red and white. Well, white is a comfort color, red is a power color. Netflix used it because they were trying to push hard away from Blockbuster, and they wanted the opposite. Blockbuster is considered inviting. Blue is an inviting color. So people are like, they wanted people to come into the store as blue. So they're blue and white, and a little bit of yellow. Yellow is kind of that color that people use it's kind of like a borderline between red and blue. It's there's a little bit of intrigue, but it's not a power color and it's not a comfort color. So you'll use it if you're like Blockbuster, right? They are like, hey, come on in, it's comforting, but we have a little bit of mystery in here. You don't know what you're gonna get, like there's stuff in there. Yellow. So they don't use yellow as their main logo color, but it is in their logo. There's a whole, I wish I had it with me, but there's a whole spectrum of color, but you can pretty much guess on how it works, right? The harsh colors, the ones you look at and you're like, that's bright, is gonna be a power color, and everything that's like, you look at it and you can just be like, oh, it's comforting, like light greens, pastels, they're like comfort colors. People identify with different colors, so you're never gonna be able to appeal to everyone, but you can tell your channel, especially on Twitch, you can tell your channel pretty quickly by your Twitch panels or your intro, if you have one, by the colors. So people know what they're getting into, If it's fast, flashy, reds, blacks, it's probably gonna be like fast-paced and energetic. I tend to stick with Capt Crabs. I stick with colors that match Capt Crabs. So they're like, light oranges, blues, they're beachy. So it's color is very important in branding in general. With games, you'll see in the backgrounds here. So like this one is Old Republic, right? They're trying to do this gritty, dark. I worked on this game for 4 years. I shipped this game actually. So they want it to be like, hey, look, it's war, it's dark, it's like greens and stuff like that. Star Wars. Lucasfilm is very, very picky on lightsaber colors, so we can only have reds and greens. In the game, we were able to force other colors, but in marketing, we only could use the reds, greens, and blues. because red is bad guys, green is good guys, blue is comfort colors, Jedi, like Jedis that are like inspiring, or like they're comforter trainers. This is Elder Scrolls Online back here. This is from that. It's very like, hey, look, it's like the dawn, but it's dark and destroyed. They use like the reds to be like, oh, it's like the eve of a battle, because they have orange, like they want it to be like, hey, it's exciting, but right now it's story, This is branding for Breach, which this game didn't make it out of early access, but the company went under because of financing. So, but they wanted it to be more like an intrigue color. So what they did was they use dark reds or dark blues, and the rest of it, like, it doesn't matter the characters so much. They're kind of, as you can see, there's a lot of blue in the characters. Sorry, it's blurry because of the background, but the thing is, it's supposed to be more of an intrigue. So they're using color to do it, but the characters pop out of the background, but they're not like clashing with it, right? So there's blue tones, and what we do in marketing, we'll actually add tones into the character designs, like just a slight tiny bit of blue, just so they blend in, but they still stick out, because it looks out of place. If you pop a color like these, and this is a very colorful game, the characters are all very colorful, because they're supposed to all have their own like personality. But in marketing, you're going to see they're going to blend a little bit, and they're going to have a little bit of blue in them. They're going to have a little tint, Let's see here. I have another one. So this is Layers of Fear 2, this background. I did this video for them, their launch video. Their whole game has this dark tint to it, right? So their marketing is all like this. Their logos were projector slides, like thing, or white on black. That was it. Like it was like flash, flash, flash. Because they were going for the horror. It's all supposed to be dark and gritty but mysterious kind of thing. So even in the game, like the game has color. They light it. It's going to be like dark colors on the outsides, bright colors where they want you to go, kind of thing. It's the same with drawing someone's eye in branding, right? You want to draw them to the middle. You want to draw them to whatever you're trying to focus them on. So I talked about this last year. Was anybody at my panel last year? No? Okay, 2 people. Okay, so we can talk about some of that stuff too. With branding in general, logo design, everything, unless your logo is just a text logo, which you do want to be able to remember that text logos need to scale. If your name is long, just make sure there's a way to read it when it's this big, Always do that. Don't design a logo that can't scale. You will use it small in social media. But as far as, I lost my train of thought on what I was talking about there. What was I talking about? Still waking up. I lost it. Shoot. Well, what were we talking about last year? Oh, yes, branding logos. So the way it works with branding, say if you're doing headers on Twitter or Twitch or anything, the goal on branding in general is you need to draw their eye to what you want them to look at. Which means, say if you're going to put a picture of yourself or your character, if you're a VTuber or something like that, in your header on Twitter, right? Never face them outward at all. The goal is always you want things to face what you want them to see. So say you got a character here and a character here on the outside of your header and they're facing outward. Well, the people are going to look where the eyes are looking, right? It's just natural to look. And you're like, oh, drawn to what they're pointing at. Face them inward, right? That keeps them in where you want them. And on Twitter, you want them to be reading your posts. You don't have to face your characters and stuff looking straight down, right? I mean, that you could do it. It would be kind of funny, but like you could face them inward to your name or whatever is across the thing to read, and literally everyone just naturally looks where the characters are looking or the person's looking. That's branding. We'll always do that. It's a standard in the branding industry. There's also the rule of thirds in the branding industry where everything is broken up to threes. This is more in motion graphics and like still images than actual video. Like on Twitter headers, you're going to put your logo straight dead center in the middle, right? Because people read straight, they read top to bottom on Twitter, so it's straight down. So you want it right in the middle where they see it. But if you're doing, say, an image of yourself with your social media layout, you're going to want to make sure you do the rule of threes. What the rule of threes is, and I also don't have the graphic for this. Rule of three is, think of it like there's 3 boxes on everything, right? 1, 2, 3 boxes. Nothing goes in the middle unless it's your logo. If you have a person, you put it towards the side or partially bleeding over, facing inward. The rule of three is you always draw the eye in, but you never break that center. Because if you put, like, say, this guy, right, and you're doing a panel or like a thing on any type of social media right here, you put him in the middle, fine, that's great. It works on Twitter because people read up to down, but on other things like advertising, marketing, if you put him in the middle, the only thing people see is this, and it feels harsh. I don't know why it is, but your eyes just don't like it. So what we always do as a rule of thirds is like this. So you have the 3 boxes, 1, 2, 3, and the character is facing inward, and either on this side or this side. And then if you have social media, you'd put him on the opposite side. So he's kind of looking towards it, and it's here. I don't know, there's some weird reason that's a thing, but for some reason that's comforting to people. People's eyes just don't like things dead center. Like, you look at it and you kind of look away. It's like a weird thing in the brain where you just don't like it in the middle. And it works, like I said, on headers and Twitter and stuff because people read top to bottom. But on other branding, people don't read that way. You know, like people read left to right. They don't like dead center stuff. It just, for some reason, bugs people. So, like if you're streaming on Twitch, if you put yourself in the middle of Twitch, no one's gonna watch you, trust me. Like, they hate it. People don't, like, why are you in the middle? Like, I don't know where I'm supposed to be looking, right? You wanna be on the left or right, you wanna be looking towards the footage, always. So if you have to flip your cam, whatever you have to do, you're looking inward, right? People wanna see if they wanna see the gameplay and you wanna play really small, fine, you know, like whatever, draw them to the gameplay, you know? If you wanna be the center of attention, maybe make yourself a little bit bigger, you know? You can go to the center if you're doing like a specific speech or something like that, but I still don't recommend it. I recommend putting your chat on the side and you on the other side because it's just a little bit jarring for people. I don't know, it's in your brain, it's just, you can't stop it. Let's see, I had another one here. Oh, this is Q&A, but yes, I've been doing this for a very long time. I've done everything from products, streams, game trailers. I worked in Hollywood for a while, even doing compositing and stuff like that. I've done merch. I keep a merch booth myself with plushies and stuff like this, and I brand all that, and it's very recognizable. It's the only giant orange booth, and people remember it. I get people come by every convention I do, and I do a lot of conventions where they're like, oh, I remember you from this convention, right? In fact, the reason I got invited to MAG was my branding in my panel. It was not because I worked in games. They didn't know anything about me. They didn't know about the VTubing. They saw my booth, and they kept coming back, and they're like, hey, we love the branding. Do you want to come and do a branding panel at MAG? So right there is proof that it worked, right? So people saw it, and they're like, I love this. And there hasn't been a single convention I've done this year where somebody didn't come up and say, I love your branding. Like, literally say that word, because they just recognize it, right? They recognize it and they're comfier with it, and everything is faced the direction they want. It draws them into the middle of your booth, especially with merch. You want to keep them in there, but make them feel like they can get away. That's what works with merch, is you don't want to make them feel like they're pinned in. They say in merch, you never do a U-shaped booth, which is the come into booth, because people feel like they're trapped. And you don't want to trap them in there. People want to be able to escape, but they want to feel like they're on their own. You know, it's their own choice to leave or stay. And you want them to stay, obviously. So, but we're going to do Q&A because I don't have a lot of slides. So if anybody has a question about anything branding, let me know. Yes?
Do you need to have a graphic design background to do branding?
Not necessarily. It depends what kind of branding you're trying to do. It doesn't hurt, and don't get me wrong. There is a lot of tutorials on YouTube about branding. In fact, I plan to make some in the future just because people keep asking about it. The big thing, what I always tell people to do is search Google. Look at other people's brands that are similar to yours. Don't copy them, but be inspired by them. Look at them and see what's working. Like I say, you can look at the big brands like Google and stuff like that, right? Look at their logo. It's simple. They use 4 colors on it, I think it is like red, blue, white. They don't have green sometimes, depending. But it's really simple and recognizable, right? But it's a simple font. It's just GOOL in a very readable font that shrinks very small. I always tell people that don't have marketing backgrounds, just don't go crazy. You don't have to go crazy. Trust me, simple is best. You need something that people will recognize. Don't use Comic Sans on anything. Trust me, it is hated. Comic Sans is made for comic bubbles. That's what it's made for. That's why it's called Comic Sans. Don't use it in logos. Trust me, the marketing world hates it, and people don't really like it. It doesn't look professional. So, but you can use simple fonts. Arial's a really good font. Verdana is excellent. Don't use Times New Roman probably. People think you're don't know what you're doing just because it's a standard typing font. But those are all fonts that are just default to every program. So yeah, I mean, you can do branding without a background. Just keep it simple. Don't, with the logo, don't go complicated. A lot of people would just buy a logo off of Fiverr nowadays. It's very common. I have friends that just do Fiverr, and that's what they do for a living. So, and they just do branding. I used to do branding back in the World of Warcraft days when it was first started. This is going to sound really dumb. I used to be the guy they used for all the leveling guides. So everybody who ran leveling guides or how to get gold farming, they would come to me to make the banners. And they mostly came to me because the companies were too expensive. And I could do the work for less money than what a company would charge. Because I was just freelancing at the time, I was, it was my early game days, and I could still do these things. And so it was yeah, let's go to him because he knows what he's doing, but he's not going to break the bank. Fiverr didn't exist back then, so we're talking early 2000s. But yeah, I mean, it's all about keeping it simple and letting it something that people would remember. Even if you do a logo and it's just say you have 4 letters or 5, well, God forbid you get 4 letters, that would be amazing. 5 or 6 letters, and you just want to make it white. Maybe make the first letter a different color, make it a blue, right? I've done that before for DJ logos where it's like when I used to use Balgosa, I would just make B, or I'd make BAL because I wanted people to call me Bal. I made that blue and everything else white, and people always remember it because they're oh, they remember the Bal, but they also remember the thing. But it's only 2 colors. It's a simple font. People just remember it. It's simple, but people remember it. And honestly, people are not going to judge you by it. They're not going to be oh, that logo looks unprofessional. They're oh, that's a cool logo. I mean, you'd be surprised. People aren't as hard to please as people think they are. So, another question? Anybody? Yeah?
Not necessarily about branding, but more about merchandising.
Sure.
So, a little bit of pretext. I've been learning 3D modeling, modeling for about 10 years or so now.
Sure.
And I'm trying to find ways to break into taking that and then using that to make things like that plush there or other kinds
out of 3D modeling? Well, you won't be able to make a plush out of 3D modeling. Well, unless you're just selling the model or you're trying to make. So I will tell you right now, if you're going to go to a plushie company to make plushies, you could give them a 3D model. They probably won't use it. I'm just going to tell you right off the bat. They actually prefer 2D drawings. So a drawing, you could draw the side of it, you can draw the front of it. I don't know why. They just don't. A lot of them don't have it set up to take a 3D model. There is companies that do this. I'm not going to say there isn't, but most of them just want a drawing. Honestly, they like to do the actual creation of it, and most of them are just really good at it. A lot of them too, they hand sew the prototypes, so they're just used to making them. Giving them a turnaround is great, and you could do that with 3D modeling. You could give them a turnaround. Yeah. I'm just, the effort may not be always the greatest for it. Obviously, a lot of people with 3D modeling, they make 3D prints nowadays.
That's where I've been putting most of my studies towards.
Yeah.
Doing the prototyping stages there, possibly migrating it to maybe injection mold or something.
Yeah.
But as far as showing off those skills to people, do you have any recommendations on how to go about that?
For your 3D modeling itself? Yeah. I've actually done a lot of reviews of reels from every department. when you're a senior, they tend to throw you into interviews, even if it's not your department. But I've done real reviews on 3D models before and stuff like that. Really, when you're trying to get into 3D modeling, especially in the gaming industry, it's a hard field. I will tell you right off the bat, most of it's contract work nowadays. There's usually, every time I've been there, 1 or 2 modelers on staff at most companies. Most companies in the game industry are not EA, right? So they're not big. Even EA will contract out those things nowadays. It's just common. You can make a lot more money contracting though, trust me. They will pay you twice as much as they pay an internal person, or more. You could easily make $100 an hour doing 3D modeling and for a game contract. Whereas on site, you probably will make somewhere in the 20s to 40s an hour, but you will be full-time with benefits. But it is hard. 3D modeling is probably one of the hardest ones, especially in the game industry, to get into, unfortunately. Artists in general is a hard one. Like concept artists, there's usually only, on a standard company I've been to, 3 to 4 maybe, and a lot of that's contracted out nowadays too. The reason they contract out is faster. They can have a lot of people, but only use them as long as they need to have models made, But most people that contract, they're doing it for multiple companies. So that's the benefit of contracting. You're not under any requirement to not work for multiple companies at one time. And sometimes you can even work for a game company and contract out a full-time job and contract out, depending. The game industry is not the highest paid industry. It is not horrible. People think it's horrible and it's not. Maybe if you go into like QA or one of the entry-level positions, the pay is not great. But it's still more than McDonald's. So you're going to be making, and you're going to be full-time. So I always tell people, game industry pays decent. It's somewhere in the middle line. You're not going to make what you can make at like Apple or Google, but you're going to enjoy your job more probably. But I will warn people, the game industry is flaky. It's very flaky. In the last 15 years, I've lived in 6 states, and I've been through 15 companies. So it is very common. They call it the nomad life, the game industry. A lot of people also will leave after a game ships. Not because the game is going to fail, they just want to work on a new project and they'll find another job. Also, you kind of work your salary up. So if you're at one job, you can actually apply to another one and get your salary up because you can tell them what you made before and they usually will up it. So people will jump, The industry is not that old at this point. So nobody knows what it's like to be elderly and working in the game industry, and I'm in the probably older bracket. I'm 43. And so there is a lot of people my age, but majority are going to be on the younger scale at this point, A lot of people come straight out of college, they'll, or they'll have, a little bit of experience, but I'd say 30 is probably the average I see, in the game industry. A lot of QA are 19 to 23 because that's a easier position to get into. I'm sorry, I could talk forever about getting into the game industry. It's there's a lot of quirks to it. It's very hard to get into. Once you're in, it's very easy to stay, as long as you don't burn bridges. Once you burn bridges, you're out of the industry forever. Trust me, you're gonna work with people that worked with you before. It's not that big of industry. So, another question? Yeah.
What's your opinion on having a character mascot or what you have for your crowd guide versus having just fun? Right now, I'm just doing fun.
You can, yes. There is people that do that. There's a streamer called Rose Doodle. She's a VTuber. She's partnered and everything. She uses this character called Beepoo. I think I hope I'm saying that right, which is this little bee character, and she uses it all the time. Her avatar on Twitch now is herself because she's become such a selling point that she has to use herself. Because she's recognizable, and her character model is very recognizable now. But when she started out, there was a lot of characters, so she had this mascot character, Beepoo. I'm saying that wrong. And that thing has become a staple, and she says it all the time, Beepoo, and it's part of her cute persona. So, and she has the character on her shoulder a lot of times when she uses a 3D model. So it's recognizable, right? She started selling plushies of it. And she sold out. Like mascots are a good idea, especially when you're starting out. But once you're the thing that's selling it, you probably want to focus on yourself and use the mascot as a recognizable tag to bring people back, right? So Captain Crabs is my brand, right? He is my brand. My streaming on Twitch, I stream as him. So he is recognizable, not me. And I always tell people, like, even when I came to MAG last year, the first time, I'm like, nobody's gonna know who I am. You know, like, they might know Captain Crabs, maybe, but they're not gonna know who I am, you know? And so I make sure I'm always wearing crab stuff, right? Like, it's on my back, it's on here. In fact, because of I literally just did a vinyl print on this jacket before I got here because I was running out of time. I have a little press and I can just cut vinyl on a Cricut machine. And I put it on there because I knew people would see it. And multiple people have stopped me, and you Captain Crabs, because they saw it on there, not because they know what I look like. And you know, I made sure everything I have has that branding on it, right? So even this shirt has it on the back. So it makes it much more recognizable. Like, they know this logo, right? I don't use this logo as my avatar on most things, but I do use it when I DJ. I have it on my DJ logo, which is like this. You know, but for Captain Crabs, I want him to be the selling point. So technically, if you said I had a mascot, it would probably be this logo, the closest to it. And I do use it on everything, and people like the skull logo. In fact, this is our #1 selling sticker. People just think it's cool, even though it makes no sense that a crab has a skeleton, because they don't. So, and it doesn't look like that. But that's actually the logo from his flag or his sail on his ship. That's what it's from. I made it for the sail when I designed the ship, and it was in the original book I did. And you know, people were like, I noticed that people liked it, so I was like, I'm going to use this in all my branding because this is simple and easy to recognize. And having a little Captain Crabs on the hat wouldn't really work. You know, he's like this. He'd be like this big and hard to see. This is like really simple colors, easy to see from a distance, you know. So I use this to draw people into Captain Crabs, and then he is the selling point because people like seeing him. He's cute, you know, like he's energetic. They can relate. So yeah, I'm not against mascots. I think it's a good idea. You just got to make sure once you become the brand that you are the focus, and the mascot is just extra to you. So yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
What are your tips for someone entering physical, like, merchandising and stuff?
Like you want to do, are you selling online? Is that the goal, or just online? It's different if you're selling in booths compared to online, for sure. I do both. I will admit I have more of a focus on the booths. I try to do a convention every month. I found that my stuff sells better when people can touch it. Like plushies, it's hard to sell plushies online, in my opinion, because your pricing, when you make custom plushies, it's gonna cost more than manufactured plushies that people are doing and they can sell for like $10, right? Like there's gonna be big booths at conventions that are just selling generic plushies, right? They have all the Pokemons or something, probably illegally. You know, like they're just selling stuff they get off of, you know, China, and they can sell them dirt cheap because they buy them at $1,000 a time. When you're doing custom plushies, you're not going to be, if you're going through a company, you're not going to be selling 1,000 of them because, damn, is that expensive? It's so expensive to get them produced. If you get them from like China, which is probably the cheapest way you can do it, the shipping is going to kill you. It's ridiculous. If you get them made in America, almost every single company that makes them in America doesn't make them in America. They make them in China. They just pay you pay them to be the middleman. So it just costs more. They'll like be free shipping, but the plushie will cost twice as much. So it's just everything's made in China nowadays. It's really what it comes to. So yeah, it can be very hard to get into the online market. A lot of people use Etsy. Etsy's obviously the standard right now. Etsy will nickel and dime the crap out of you. Just a heads up. It's just like using Steam though for games. Steam takes a 30% cut of all profit on Steam. So if a game puts itself on Steam, they take 30% of the profit, including any in-game transactions. So microtransactions, 30% of the profit. So like Elder Scrolls Online, right? They weren't on Steam day one when they went on PC. They were on their own launcher. They wanted people to get in first. They knew they were going to go to Steam eventually, but they didn't want to lose all that profit day one. And they tried to get people to their copy as much as possible, right? If they're going to link it, they're probably not going to link Steam unless there's some special going on or something, because they're losing 30% of their profit. And every microtransaction in the game is 30% of their profit is gone. So Etsy's the same way. They don't take 30%, but it will be pennies here, dollar here. There's a lot going on. Which one? Redbubble? Redbubble, sites like that, there's a lot of those sites. They're pretty good for t-shirt design. They do take a decent percentage. I'm not exactly sure what the percentage is. I think it's somewhere around like 25%, if I remember correctly. But you gotta factor in production costs too, and they will take that percentage of it too, which makes sense because you would pay that to somebody else. But if you were doing it on your own, you would be paying less, but more upfront. So the benefits of these like print-on-demand sites is that you don't have to pay anything, right? You're just going in there. And a lot of people do that. They can even do drop shipping on Etsy, which is like going through Printful or Printify, and those sites are free print shops. And what they'll do is you design, you put it on those shirts. It doesn't cost you anything. You can sync it directly to your Etsy or whatever. They sync with all the big sites. And basically it's print on demand. So what happens is people order something, it actually gets sent to them. They charge you the production cost or whatever it is, and it comes out of your PayPal or whatever. They print it and everything. They send it to the client, and it has your branding on it. So it looks like it's coming from you. The address is usually theirs, but like you can actually set it depending on the company. And so it looks like it's coming from you. In fact, I use that for shirts because it's easier. I switched to Printful because their quality is better, but they have less designs, like less options. But you do everything, hats, all that stuff through. This hat's printed through Printify. So this shirt's through Printful. So yeah. Because of the cost of like doing your own shirts, that's why I don't sell them at cons, because I would have to keep a giant collection of shirts. And even if I actually press them myself, it's expensive, like to get and keep that thing. There's gonna be upfront costs. So people use drop shipping because there's no upfront costs. You only get charged when you get paid. So like when they pay you through Etsy, the money goes to you directly. So like it'll go to your PayPal or whatever, and then the print company, the drop shipping, will actually take their percentage out of yours. So they'll charge you. So, but you do make like, usually the cost is like $5 a shirt. So it's a pretty good price ratio. You can make a decent amount of money that way. But it is, they call it print on demand. So you don't have to pay for 30 plus t-shirts up front. Which is cool for booths. You can order, like from those drop shipping, a lot of them will let you order shirts at cost, but it can be pretty pricey. Like Printful actually only lets you do 3 a month unless you pay for a premium subscription. Printify, I think it lets you do 50, but I found that Printify's, the quality wasn't as good, like they washed out fast. So Printful has much, like I've watched this thing like 30 times and it still hasn't faded. So it just depends. Printify goes through like 20 companies. So you can actually pick who prints it. Printful prints them themselves. So it's just different, like, and that's why Printful doesn't have as many options of different types of clothes and stuff like that. Some things are pricey, jackets, stuff like that can be pricey to them, but yeah, there's a lot of options. Drop shipping is what a lot of people use if you see them selling t-shirts on Etsy and clothes specifically, because it doesn't cost you up front, which is great. So, yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
Any suggestions for like outside of t-shirts, suppliers for things like plushes or like?
I don't have a recommendation on plushies directly. I've used 2 different ones. Like I said, a lot of people will go through Alibaba, which is a popular website. It does all go through China mostly. There's like 1 or 2. There's not any plushie designers on there that go through America. But like I said, every American place I've looked at just prints through China. So pretty much all of it gets made there, which means you pay the shipping. The quality's good, but the shipping sucks. Like say if you want to ship if you're going to go like through Alibaba and talk to somebody in one of these Chinese companies, it's going to be a lot of work because they don't speak good English. It can be a little confusing explaining things sometimes. You can get lucky. I wish I could recommend a certain company, but it's kind of hard. I have one that I use, I can't pronounce the name, that makes these ones. They are all hand sewn, which is great, and that's part of the reason I chose them. They have embroidery, they can do all that kind of stuff, and I wanted it handmade. But doing it like through, I have a friend who does, Brianna Rose, who does plushies, and she hand sews them and does booths. And if I paid her to do it, it would cost me 3 times more, and I have to charge more for the plushies. So in the end, it's cheaper, but I have to put a lot more up front. You know, I'll have to drop thousands of dollars to get them made up front, and then hope I can make the money back later. What I did on 2 of my plushies, which was the Crab Thulu and the Buttons plushie, the cat, I Kickstarted them, which is great. The only drawback with Kickstarter is the time. So Kickstarters run for 1 month. You can make up all your costs up front if you make sure you add it correctly with shipping. You can ask most of these companies what the shipping is going to be, and they can give you an estimate, and then I would up it because it's going to switch. The shipping changes every day. If you do, yeah, I mean, like you're going to play, like say if you're going to order, obviously the more plushies you get, the cheaper it's going to be. This is any product. If you ordered 300 plushies, right, to ship. If you ship them by boat, you're probably going to pay anywhere between $400 to $600 for shipping. And it's going to take about 2 months to get by boat. And you will not be able to track it. Literally, you just wait for it to hit like customs, and then it'll sit in customs for a week or more, depending. Those companies know how to get through customs, so they tape up the boxes within like 30 layers of tape, so customs won't open them. Is what they do, because customs doesn't want to bother with it. But they'll put like signs all over it, this is plushies and stuff like that. But if you airship them, you like 300 plushies airshipped would probably cost you about $2,700. So, and you'll get them in about 6 days. Great for, I've done it for a rush. Like I wanted to get 10 custom plushies for something. I rushed it, and it was about $350. So I sold the plushies at a loss because of the shipping, but I just needed them for a specific thing. So I was like, I need them, I got to do it. Air shipping's great if you can get the cost back, but you got to remember with custom, especially custom plushies, that people don't want to spend $50 on a plushie. If you're like my friend, she has hand sewn plushies, and they're usually over $50 because she hand sews them. She's literally sewing them in the booth sometimes, and they're great. They're awesome, and they look professional. But you have to be able to sell yourself that you are hand sewing them, and so she sews in the booth. People see her doing it, and so people are willing to drop the money on it. Whereas I'm not sitting there sewing plushies, you know, and I'm very open about the fact I design the plushies, but I don't have the talent to sew plushies or the time. And so like I do have them handmade. They are hand sewn, just not by me. So I feel like being open about it is way easier, but I also have to remember, because of that, I have to make sure my prices are not robbing the bank, you know, and I have to also, they always say what you're trying to do with merch is you want to triple what it costs you to make it. So say if it costs you $5, you're going to want to make 15, right? Depending on the price, like plushies, I went higher and then lowered it because I knew I needed to hit a certain price point, but I still could make some money off of it. You know, you obviously want to make your money back, right? You also don't want to go negative, or just flat out. You want to make a profit. If you're merch, you know, you have to make a profit. That's the whole point. If you do conventions, they cost a lot. You know, this convention, I don't know how much this one cost. I get lucky being a guest. They can give you a guest booth, so I'm lucky. But they can get pricey. I mean, like some of the big ones, the Comic-Cons and stuff, they cost $1,200 for a booth. You know, and that's an artist alley booth sometimes. So a lot of them have been getting cheaper and doing bigger artist alley booths. But I still paid $350 for a booth at AwesomeCon. I mean, like, and I've gotten close to where I don't make that money back. You know, placement and everything else makes a difference. So and marketing. You know, your branding has to do. Like the first time I got stuck at AwesomeCon, that's actually where MAGFest found me. They kept coming by and seeing my booth. Well, all my stuff is kid friendly. The guy next to me was literally selling porn. He was drawing boobs, and he had them up on his poster, and people were literally walking by yelling boobs, you know, like, and stuff like this. And parents were pulling their kids away from our booth because he had them laying out on the table, which was actually illegal, and you're not supposed to do that. There's just, if you do risque art, you have to have it in a black binder closed. But he just left them open, had them up there. We complained. They moved us the last day, but we didn't make our money back. So we never went back. It was a bad situation, but after, you know, with the COVID thing, it was the first time they were open. They were understaffed. This is a problem for everything. Mag struggled a little bit with last year. They just didn't have enough staff. This year it's doing much better. It's going to get better and better. But yeah, you can just have a bad con. You know, con selling's hard and it's expensive. Like, and you have to pre-book and apply for them, and a lot of them are on like a roulette kind of thing. You know, like you don't know if you're going to get in. You need to make sure you have something that sells well, that other people are not going to have. Good example, my stuff, I make sure I tell them it's kid content, right? I have kids books. Not a lot of people are doing booths that are kid friendly, and every convention wants it because they're like, we don't have any kid friendly content. We want kids to come, which means parents come and spend money on their kids, right? They want that. They want money spent. And so pushing the kid side of it gets us into almost every convention when we apply, which is awesome. We can afford to go to every convention because it can crop up on you really quick when they're really expensive, but yeah.
So I have a question related to that. So I'm thinking about starting to stream Pokemon Unite, and given that it's Pokemon, it's definitely geared towards children. Having said that, though, in terms of Twitch, like, I don't necessarily curse during my stream, but I can see sometimes like chat and all of that. Like,
on Twitch, it is hard. Like, I tell people my content on Twitch is family friendly, and I keep it family friendly. The only reason I started that is because I have a 6 and an 8-year-old, and I can't be sitting there cussing up a storm when they're in the house, you know, and they hear it through the walls. And they're literally, when I start streaming, it's at 9 p.m. at night when they're asleep, and they're sleeping in the room next door. So if I'm raging, it's not a good thing, right? And I don't want them repeating that stuff. And so I just kind of kept it clean. I don't force it. I'm not like, I tend to play, when I game, it's always like farm sims, but the only reason I do that is because I have the time for it. I can't play, I used to be an all MMO guy, you know. MMOs are investment in time. I don't have that time anymore. So I play farm sims because you can play a day and stop, you know. And I don't play shooters because I don't have enough time to get good enough to actually be competitive, which is what sells on Twitch, is being competitive. Not, you either have to be horrible and that's your gimmick, or you have to be good if you're doing shooters, and I just don't have the time for it. So.
how do you tread that family-friendly line? Because I say that as a former League player,
Yeah.
so it's like,
Family friendly is hard on Twitch. To use that tag, which was a tag until they opened tags up, is hard. It's a hard sell. But I will tell you, every time I use that tag, I almost always got on the front page of Twitch.
well, so I'm wondering,
Because Twitch wants that content even though they're 18 plus.
different streams, like,
Yeah.
where it's like I do a late night stream that's more adult oriented.
Yep.
Because I would love to like give tutorials, and so that's why I'd like to possibly have.
Yeah, I mean, my biggest problem is I stream at night, right? If I wanted to actually get kids, and despite what Twitch says, there's kids all over Twitch.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
it's
the point. They're
YouTube and Twitch. I mean, they're everywhere, right? And they're going to watch stream on Twitch because everyone hears about Twitch. That window is usually right after school. So it's going to be like 3 p.m. to like, you know, maybe 8, 9 o'clock when the parents kick them off kind of thing. That's the kid window. I cannot do that because I have kids, right? I can't hit that window. So I start at 9 o'clock when most of the kids are done for the day, and it's an older crowd. There is a subgenre of people that like watching kid-friendly content. There's religious people that try to stick to that stuff because they know that it's not going to be too raunchy for them. And there's some people just like comfy streams. You know, I'm in a VTuber group, Fuatopia, which is literally just means cozy streams, right? Everyone in it just does art, or they do something that's some of them do swear, but they keep it friendly, right? It's inviting for people. They can come there and chill, you know. And it brings people, but not the numbers you get for, you know, there's more people watching shooters than there is that. But you could still get a good audience, you know. I can't keep up the hours I need to do to get to partners, so I gave up on trying. But you can be just as successful as an affiliate. And I got affiliate in about 5 months. So, which isn't that hard, especially if you have friends, because you just need a 3 viewer average. I think it's still 3, which just, you know, call your friends every time you go live and say, just can you sit in the channel, you know. But yeah, it's possible. I do a lot of there's about half the Fuatopia members are partnered, so it's possible. Most of them did art. Art definitely has a subgenre of lurkers, so specifically that like to just sit in art channels. During the day when I work, I'll sit in art channels or farming games because I don't have to focus. I can listen, you know, but not have to watch all the time.
Well, because you mentioned ADHD, and like I know, like I like to sometimes when I'm working on something, those streams in the background. So I would also like to provide that kind of stream.
Yeah, there's not a day goes by that I'm not watching a stream in the background, or 2 sometimes. When I'm video editing and working, I'll usually have a stream up, sometimes have 2 up on a monitor, and just listening to both. And as long as I'm not blaring music or something, I can't watch like super active streams, you know, that are like Ninja or something that's like, you know, in a fight all the time, blah, blah, blah. You know, I need something that's not gonna distract me, but I need something that is comforting, you know? So I stick with art, farm, sometimes DJing, depending on what it is too, which music and art have exploded on Twitch. They're doing very well. Obviously, just talking is massive, but very hard to break into. Just because it's popular doesn't mean you're gonna get anywhere in it. So, because it's oversaturated, so. Yeah, any other questions? Anything else you'd like me to talk about? Is there anything that anybody has just interest in that they don't have to do? Yeah?
So I don't know if this is necessarily related to the panel, but what if you wanted to brand yourself as someone who would want to play a new game like on release? So, because I saw you work with Dragon Age Origins.
Yeah, I did their first trailer actually.
Yeah, if you wanted to be like one of the first people to play.
So here's the thing. I tell everybody, sometimes your numbers don't matter. Your follower count doesn't matter. I've reached out to game companies to get early access. And even if you're not a big streamer, you'd be surprised how many will actually give you early access. I tell people just send it out to anyone, especially nowadays that a lot of stuff's indie, right? A lot of people I know left full-time companies and started their own companies. Indies are huge. You can just look at the indie arcade, right? There's friggin' tons of games down there I've never heard of. You know, like you just like, they're all over the place, and indie is massive. Like I actually, because I like playing comfy games, there's a group called Wholesome Games. They're on Twitch or Twitter, sorry. And they do this like Wholesome Direct and stuff like that, where they talk about all these games. Majority of them are indie games, right? They're all comforting games, like usually kid friendly, but they're usually like everything from farm sims to like story games, adventure games. You know, anything that looks cute and cozy is in that. And so I watch all their stuff, and if there's a company that looks interesting, like their game might not be out, they're like, you know, coming soon on Steam, I'll reach out to them. And a lot of them are small. They're like 1 or 2 people, and they'll put you on the list. You know, like they're gonna give you early access because they want people to stream it. And sometimes you can get super lucky, like anybody who was doing Among Us, right? When it came, like Among Us was out on mobile for a long time and never really picked up. And then they started doing it on PC, which is where streamers are, right? Steam. And they exploded, right? And it was because of streamers. It wasn't because of marketing. I never saw any marketing for them at all, you know, besides being on Steam, right? And the more popular you are, the more chance on Steam that they're gonna put you on the front page. You can ask Steam to put you on the front page, which I've done at other companies. I mean, you can ask, right? Steam does what Steam does. They do whatever they want. You're doing popular, they're gonna throw you up there because they want more sales, you know, because they make 30%, right? So you can see like Fall Guys, right? Another one, right? Not a big studio. It's they're a funded studio, but not huge. But their game was unknown, right? Suddenly streamers are playing it. It's a multiplayer game, which obviously is a good thing because you can get all these streamers together. Same with YouTube, it's the same way, right? Streamers working together have a better chance of growing them by themselves. And so collabs are huge. I've never had as much success with collabs because of the types of games I play are obviously not multiplayer games, but I've done them. You know, I joined a group so we could do collabs, albeit we all do solo stuff for the most part. But yeah, it's those kind of games can explode on Twitch, and so reaching out to them ahead of time, you can. I mean, I had early access to Fall Guys, you know, and at the time I wasn't that well known on Capt Crabs. You know, I was still growing. Yeah, I got 2 giant raids, which helped a lot. Iron Mouse raided me twice out of the blue. You know, people are just like, oh, there's this cute crab that does DJing. You need to raid him. And she listened to him and raided with 8,000 people. You know, almost broke my stream. It literally like was all the alerts going off, almost crashed. I had to turn everything off. I mean, it can happen, right? Like, I had something unique at the time. You know, VTubers have gotten a little oversaturated now, so it's a lot harder. But at the time, there wasn't any chibi crabs DJing. You know, there wasn't any VTubers DJing. So I hit a niche market, you know. I've kind of shied away to that time, which has hurt, you know, the channel, you know, like, but I have to juggle other things. The merch store is taken off more. So I have to spend more time on that, you know. It's tough. My YouTube has been like lingering and I have not even looked at it. That's actually a good advice for anyone. They always say, you know, like get on all social media. Well, get on all social media. Don't necessarily use all social media. Pick where you think your audience is going to be and you focus on 1 or 2. VTubing, it's all Twitter. I hate Twitter. I'm on it every day. I'll probably check it the minute I get off this panel. It's where all the VTubers are. There's no other place. Japanese, English, they're there. You know, like that's the VTuber culture is all there, especially the Twitch one. They're all on Twitter. Instagram, TikTok, you know, like you can get successful people from TikTok, and TikTok is a good means of getting people. With VTubing, 50-50. I've found a lot of people are just like, it doesn't work for me. I've never had super luck on it. You know, I'll get some hits here and there, maybe get a person or 2, which is good. And the easiest thing is just to take your clips and put them on TikTok. I mean, literally, there's websites that'll convert it for you for free. You know, you can just do that and do it occasionally. I have not caught up with it because I don't have that kind of time. But there's ways to do it, and they say like YouTube Shorts, and every tutorial you see of every like stream coach, as they say, on the internet, will tell you, yeah, you need to put videos up on TikTok and YouTube Shorts, and yeah, it does work. For some people, I recommend don't overload yourself, because if you're trying to be a streamer, it's better to focus on you and enjoying your games, because people will come and you will see, like, if you start being negative. I had a lot of health problems come up in the last year. I started getting a little more negative because of it, and I saw people leave. Like, you can literally see those numbers leaving. There's websites that'll track that stuff. And I knew it right away, you know, like people were getting quieter, and I'm like, oh, and I looked at my streams and I'm like, man, I'm being negative. Like, you can't be that. You need to be positive because they're watching you for a good time. Yeah, you can be open about your problems. Like, I'm open about the fact I'm type 1 diabetic, you know, and every once in a while I have to stop my stream because my numbers went too high and I'm about to pass out, you know, like, and so I'll be open about it, you know, and people like that. They like when you're personal, even if you're a crab, you know, like, they like to be part of it, and they like to be part of your world, especially in streaming. They want to be involved. They want to be recognized. They want you to remember their name. You know, and there's a lot of people that are like that, you know, and being open about your stuff. I'm open about ADHD. You'll see a lot of streamers are, but I would say probably 90% of streamers have ADHD at this point. It's super common. You know, like, being open about it is not a problem. People actually like that. I wouldn't throw it in their face 24/7, but if you have a moment where you just talk about it, actually people like that. Those streams that people call health streams, they're like people talking about their problems and talking through issues. People love that, and they're really popular just talking. So being open about that stuff is not a problem. As far as branding, I wouldn't be throwing that out. Obviously, people use it a lot with LGBT stuff. Sorry, I'm horrible at saying the whole name, so I just say LGBT, sorry. I'm not trying to offend anybody. I forget the order. People use that a lot because there is an audience to bring in for that. You know, like, there's people that want to be safe, you know, and I actually use a tag of safe. There's people who use like the plus, you know, LGBTQ, sorry, I'm going to butcher it. I'm sorry, I'm horrible at it. Plus, because they're like a supporter, but not in the community. Sometimes that is helpful to let people know that they can be themselves in the channel. I just use the word safe because I'm like, you could be whoever you want in this channel. Don't be 12 years old and telling everybody, but like you could be, as long as you're in the TOS, you know, you could be in this channel and be comforting. You can be open, you know, set your rules. I'm like no politics, you know, because that's another thing. You just you're gonna segregate your audience, you know, but like you can be open about, you know, medical things. You can be open about, you know, depending on your channel, sexual preferences, you know, as long as it's comforting for everyone involved. And if you don't want them in a channel, they're gonna leave, trust me, they're gonna leave. So it's not a problem, you know, there's always trolls, especially on Twitch. You know, just get rid of them and, you know, say, hey, you know, I support this. If you don't, you know, you don't have to be here, you know. So yeah, you can pretty much do all that stuff, and on Twitch people like it. They like knowing that they're included and that there's other people like them. Especially with medical stuff, that's been a thing with me the last year. A lot of stuff has come up, and so like I've been very open about it. And you know, your regulars will always stick with you no matter what, as long as you're not being negative. You can say, you know, it's been tough. I'm having a tough time. You know, please bear with me. And people like that. If you're saying, you know, hate this, hate that, man, life sucks, you know, they're not going to stick with you. So, and that's part of your brand too, right? Like, you want to keep your brand positive 24/7, ever. Nobody's going for a negative brand. Even the stuff like, it's like rage, metal band, right? Like, they're still like inviting to their audience, right? They're not like, I hate you all, and you know, you all suck for being here, usually. So, I mean, there's people that do that, but it's really hard to be that way in branding in general, especially on Twitch. You know, breaking in on Twitch is hard. You know, I streamed for 2 years, like 1 or 2 people, you know, and then my channel got really big. I think it was art streams. I switched to art right when art was doing a thing. What got Capt Crabs popular is the stupidest thing. The DJing helped for sure at the beginning. When they added the hot tub streams as an option, a category, I made a frying pan on a stove and I put myself in it, right? And I said I was having a hot tub stream, and I played it off the entire time that I didn't know it was a pot, right? And so, I made alerts, and I made overlays that they could drop in vegetables, and the hand would come out and drop vegetables in, or they come out with salt shaker and salt it. And they could just trigger those, you know. Yeah, well, that's what everybody said. Where's the Old Bay? And literally, I was on the top 2 rows that first day. There was like, you know, bikini half-naked person, cute chibi crab in a pot, and everybody's like, what is that? You know, like even people that were going for the other streams were like popping there like I had to see what this was. And, you know, I was in a few hundred people that day because of that, you know, and people stuck around even though they were like that wasn't what they were into. They were just like, what is this? This is crazy, I need to do it. And I played it off the entire stream, like, what are you talking about? Oh, some nice white guy in a white coat, you know, said this was a pool and he gave it to me, you know, and I was playing it off and I'm like, ooh, snacks every time they drop vegetables in. And I even made my character get redder. And so like, I was like, ooh, it's getting hot, and I sunk in the pot. And they're like, no, Crabs, no. And you get people coming in like, I need some Old Bay, you know, and stuff like that. Obviously, Old Bay is always a thing is out here. You know, and people just loved it. And I just played it off the whole time. And it was popular with people that never had seen my stream because of it. Twitch, that's important. Jump those trends. Unfortunately, that's just how it works, you know. Everyone else is going to do it if you can stick out some way. There's a girl that streams in hot tubs that's super popular, and all she shows is her arm. Have you seen this? So what she does is, and she makes a lot of money. She has a board, and she says, you know, if we get 50 subs, I'm going to come out in my thong and blah, 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 you know. And every day she has timers set, and she never shows more than her arm. And she has like, for $5, I'll write your name on my arm. For $10, I'll write it on my hand. And she keeps teasing that she's going to come out in a thong. She's going to do exercises in the pool, which is in the middle of the camera. And she never shows up. And every time the timer hits 0, she starts it over for another thing. And people pay her. It's crazy. And she's been doing it for 2 years, I think. It's crazy, and I can't even imagine what she's making on donations. And somehow she never talks to chat. Like she's never, like there's people in there, where are you, blah, blah, blah. Doesn't matter, people still go in there. But it's crazy. It's crazy what works on Twitch. And yeah, you could say she's being a bad person, but I don't think she cares. She's making a ton of money. She never has to show her face. Nobody knows who she is. It's weird. It's weird what works on Twitch, I go for the comfort side of it, for the most part. I DJ. I try to keep it still. I try not to do too much swear words, but if I'm going to, I warn people ahead of time. This stream, I'm just going to play what I want to play. I'm not going to be like, dropping F-bombs or anything, but like some of these songs may say the S word, it happens. It's in those songs, but it's still like when you warn them ahead of time, people are pretty cool with it. And every time there's a raid, I'll be like, hey guys, tonight I'm not doing family friendly, this is gonna be a T-rated stream, whatever. And honesty is probably the number one thing you can do. It's the same with like the medical stuff, like I have a list on my page of what my quirks are. I say quirks instead of medical stuff, like type 1 diabetic, I'm bipolar, I have ADHD, I have neuropathy, but also I've been in the game industry for 16 years, I'm a published kids author, I've, worked in Hollywood on compositing for TV and film, I put those in there and people are like, they'll be like, aw, when they see some of them and then they're like, oh, and so it's showing you that you're a real person and they love that. People love to see that you have negative stuff, but you're being positive and here's the cool stuff you do. And if you don't have that kind of repertoire, and that's all in my branding. That's my branding, is on Twitch, it's yourself, is the main part of your brand. So, because you are the selling point in the end, no matter what. Your model, like if you're a VTuber, your model can maybe bring people in from a thumbnail, but that's it, right? Once they're there, it's up to you to get them to stick. And so like, you'll see like when I use overlays, when I use overlays and stuff, they all match my branding. So, any last questions? Because I guess we're out of here. I'm out of time. No? Well, if anybody wants to hit me up, I have some cards here. Feel free to grab some. I'll throw them down the table for you guys. You can hit me up on Twitter, Discord, anything, and I can answer more questions. So, feel free to grab these. I am really easy to find, though. I'm Capt Crabs on literally everything. So. I was very lucky to get that name on everything.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.